Before I begin with this story about Ian Schweitzer and what he went through, let me say that the family of Dana Ireland, they have not received justice for the brutal murder of their loved one, because innocent men were arrested and jailed, put in prison. One man, until his death in 2015, he was attacked by another inmate, and the other until literally a few days ago when the Innocence Project helped to free him. And this young girl did not deserve what happened to her. Nobody does. She has not had justice yet. All these years later, the DNA that they have on a single person, the shirt that was found near her, the gurney that she was on, and the swabs in her R kit all point to a single man. And they need to find him, because as long as he is free, there has been no justice for this young woman and her family. So let's get to this story about an innocent man who was in prison for 25 years, you guys. Hey guys, so this man's name is Albert Ian Schweitzer, and he is from Hawaii. This man spent the last 25 years in an Arizona prison for a crime that he did not commit. He and his brother and another man were accused of R-wording a young woman from Virginia, a young white, blonde, blue-eyed, she was very pretty young woman, and they were sentenced. He was sentenced to 25 years behind bars. His brother took a plea deal and spent, I don't remember how many years, but we'll get to it in the article. And the other man died in prison. So I'm going to read to you from the innocenceproject.org. Ian Schweitzer exonerated of murder after 25 years in Hawaii. New DNA evidence identifies one unknown male perpetrator, proving Mr. Schweitzer and his co-defendants' innocence. Today, Judge Peter K. Kubota dismissed Albert Ian Schweitzer's conviction for the 1991 RAPE and murder of Dana Ireland based on new DNA testing that excluded Mr. Schweitzer and his co-defendants and identified a single unknown male suspect. Additionally, newly discovered evidence presented to the court revealed that although DNA testing at Mr. Schweitzer's original trial excluded him and his co-defendants, the state used false jailhouse informant testimony to build its case, which led to the wrongful conviction of Mr. Schweitzer, his younger brother Sean Schweitzer, and Frank Pauline Jr., who is now deceased. Ian walked free today after 25 years of wrongful incarceration. So you guys, they didn't have any evidence linking Mr. Schweitzer, his younger brother, and a friend of theirs to this R word and murder of this young woman. But on the word of a jailhouse informant, by the way, I'm going to show you his photo and tell you what happened to him. The person who testified against them was a friend of theirs. But based on someone's testimony, someone who had already been in trouble for doing things, they convicted. Okay, what was up with that damn jury? It's crazy that someone's life is placed in the hands of 12 other normal, regular human beings who may have some biases, who may have been looking at these tan-skinned men and just automatically thinking that they were somehow responsible. It's not far-fetched, you guys. It's not. After 25 years of incarceration for a crime Mr. Schweitzer did not commit, he is eager to have his name cleared and return home to his family. From the beginning, the DNA in this case provided powerful evidence that these three men are innocent, said Susan Friedman, one of Ian's Innocence Project attorneys. Yet, the state built its case on false informant testimony and misapplied forensic evidence. We are grateful to the Hawaii County Prosecuting Attorney for the collaboration during this re-investigation. The new scientific evidence is clear. Mr. Schweitzer did not commit this crime. So you guys, this was one of the most high-profile cases Hawaii has ever seen. And it happened in, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Hilo, Hawaii. According to the article, the pressure to get justice ends in wrongful conviction. On December 24th, 1991, Miss Ireland was struck by a vehicle on Kopoa Kai Drive on Hawaii Island while cycling home and sustained life-threatening injuries. Miss Ireland had also been SEXUALLY assaulted and left on a fishing trail in the Wawa subdivision. Miss Ireland died from severe blood loss at the hospital the following day. From the beginning, local and state news regularly covered the case. The community supported the Ireland family by helping to raise money for a reward and holding a candlelight vigil and parade on the one-year anniversary of Miss Ireland's murder. As time passed, there was mounting public pressure to solve the case. In April 1994, a petition was started requesting that the Hawaii Attorney General appoint an independent prosecutor to investigate Miss Ireland's murder. In May of 1994, what seemed to be a break in the case came from incentivized informant John Gonsalves, Mr. Pauline's half-brother. So his half-brother put him in prison until he died. He never saw freedom again because of his half-brother's lie. There was no evidence linking any of those men to that crime. So Mr. John Gonsalves, Mr. Pauline's half-brother, who claimed to law enforcement that Mr. Pauline had information on Miss Ireland's murder. A month later, Mr. Pauline, who was incarcerated on unrelated charges, falsely confessed to being in a car with Ian and Sean when they committed the crime. Mr. Pauline gave multiple statements to police which were riddled with inconsistencies in an attempt to gain favor for himself and Mr. Gonsalves, who was facing significant drug charges at the time. Mr. Pauline later recanted his confession on July 6, 1996. The Schweitzer brothers and Mr. Pauline were nonetheless indicted. So he lied, just like his half-brother, to gain favor, but he put himself in prison, falsely accused himself, just like his half-brother, put 2 other innocent people in prison. Can you imagine, you guys, being in prison for, I can't even fathom. I couldn't even put it in my mind. It's frightening, right? Could you imagine someone that you loved being there and knowing what happens to people in prison? Knowing what happens to men when they are accused of that sort of crime? The Schweitzer brothers and Mr. Pauline were nonetheless indicted. Subsequent DNA testing on the RAPE kit and spermatozoa on the hospital gurney sheet on which Miss Ireland was transported excluded all 3 co-defendants. The indictments against the Schweitzer brothers were dismissed, but not those against Mr. Pauline, who had confessed. So if the indictments against the Schweitzer brothers were dismissed, how did they get convicted? Let's keep on with the story. In 1999, Ian and Sean were re-indicted based on new allegations from a jailhouse informant, Michael Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz claimed that Ian confessed to him while they were both incarcerated. Mr. Pauline was tried and convicted in August 2000, and Ian was convicted in February 2000. Ian was sentenced to life for second-degree murder, plus 20 years for kidnapping and 20 years for sexual assault to run consecutively. Consecutively, you guys, do you know what that word means to a person incarcerated? That meant that he had a life sentence for the second-degree murder, which I don't know what life is in Hawaii or wherever, but 20 years for the kidnapping and then 20 years for the sexual assault meant 40 years. So he would serve his 20 and then the next 20 would begin. Mr. Pauline was sentenced to life for second-degree murder and given 2 concurrent life sentences for kidnapping and first-degree sexual assault. So concurrent meant that his 40 years would run together. It wouldn't be 40, it would be 20. They would run together. Mr. Pauline died in prison in 2015 after being attacked by a prisoner. This is Mr. Frank Pauline Jr. He is the one, he lied at the beginning and he confessed, hoping to gain favor. And then he recanted, but it was too late. You know what I mean? And this man died in prison after being attacked by another prisoner. I mean, do you think that he went through many attacks while he was there? Between 2002 and 2015, that was 15 years. With the charges that they all had, what do you guys think happened to them? Innocent men who were probably R-worded on a regular basis, animals in the prison who used that as an excuse to engage in that type of behavior. So he basically helped himself to be convicted, trying to gain favor to get off on a drug charge, and then took 2 other people into that abyss along with him. So that is Mr. Frank Pauline Jr. And this is the only photo that I could find of Sean Schweitzer, the younger brother of Ian Schweitzer. I couldn't find any other photos of him, of what he looks like now. So the younger brother, Sean, he spent nearly 2 years behind bars, according to this news article, HawaiiNewsNow.com. He spent nearly 2 years behind bars before taking a plea deal. But his attorney, Alex Simpson of the Innocence Project, is now working to get his conviction vacated too. Looking at Sean's case, he's just as innocent as Ian, Simpson said. Linda Schweitzer, their mother, said she had hoped for years this day would come. I'll say it again, my son is innocent. Both of my sons are innocent, she said. Oh, wow, you guys. This is sad. So new DNA evidence reinforces innocence. A key piece of evidence at both Ian and Mr. Pauline's trials was a Jimmy Z t-shirt found near the victim's body, which was soaked in her blood. At both trials, the prosecution presented witnesses who claimed the shirt belonged to Mr. Pauline, even though he strenuously denied this and argued the shirt did not fit. Remember, OJ, if it does not fit, you must acquit. Since Ian's conviction, there have been significant advancements in forensic DNA testing. In light of this, additional items from Miss Ireland's RAPE kit, as well as the Jimmy Z t-shirt, were tested. Despite the state's contention that the Jimmy Z t-shirt was worn by Mr. Pauline during the crime, DNA testing excluded Mr. Pauline and the Schweitzer brothers from DNA recovered from the t-shirt. New DNA results of an armpit cutting and semen stain prove that the habitual wearer of the shirt was the same unknown person, unknown male number 1, whose DNA was recovered from items in Miss Ireland's RAPE kit that were tested before Ian's trial. Unknown male number 1 was linked to Miss Ireland's vaginal swab, hospital gurney sheet, her underwear, her pubic combings, and the Jimmy Z t-shirt. Ian, Sean, and Mr. Pauline have been excluded from all the DNA recovered from the evidence in this case. These findings further solidified the innocence of all 3 men. Unregulated informant testimony perpetuates injustice. Throughout this case, law enforcement's dependence on unreliable informant testimony had devastating consequences. In exchange for his testimony, Mr. Gonsalves was sentenced to probation. Although he initially faced significant prison time, and the state promised not to transfer him for federal prosecution. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm stumbling over my words. Mr. Ortiz was facing a retrial and 10-year sentence, but had his sentence reduced to time served after he began cooperating with law enforcement in this case. Jailhouse informant testimony has played a leading role in 19% of the Innocence Project's 241 exonerations and releases to date. 241 doesn't seem like a huge number with the millions of people that, we have in this country, but that is a huge number of innocent people. Imagine how many more people are in prison and they're innocent, and they're going every single day knowing I'm an innocent person. I'm innocent, right? And they're stuck in there. Look at how young these guys were. Look at how young they were in their photos in 1997 when they were, they were re-indicted. And then the Albert Ian went to court in 2000 and was convicted. His brother spent less than 2 years because he said he was guilty. He lied so that he could get a plea deal and get the hell out of prison. That happens way too often. I don't have children, but I could just imagine what their mother was feeling. 24/7 worry, waking up out of your sleep, wondering if your child is okay. What is happening to him in that hellhole? There are innocent people in prison, you guys. And guess what? Those innocent people are in there with real monsters. And when you are accused as a man of RAPE, they use it as an excuse to harm you in all sorts of ways, to violate. So that man lived 25 years in a living hell. What are they going to do to right that wrong? What? I think the people who worked so hard to mislead the jury, to twist the case until they got a conviction, I think they should go to jail for lying, for tampering with evidence. Because guess what? Somebody's testimony, if you twisted that person's arm, that's evidence. That's my opinion. I think they should be tried because they caused someone innocent to go through pure hell for 25 years. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.